In a sense, I don't really know what I do. If you were to film me, you might be able to tell me what it is that I do when I'm with clients. When they started broadcasting television, they stopped broadcasting between 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock, and they had a thing called interlude, and it's things like a potter's wheel and flowers and stuff. And you think, what that's all about? That's to give parents time to put their kids to bed so they wouldn't be distracted by the television, so they wouldn't have access to it. How do you do it now? I mean, it's impossible. There's so much more accessibility. So yes, there should be some restrictions on children's access to the internet. And maybe it's guided rather than restricted. Parents need to know what their children are looking at, and they need to push them in certain directions. I work as a psychotherapist. I have for the last 27 years, and that means helping people understand how they think, because they come to me often when they're stuck, when things aren't working, and then I help them understand how they've come to be as they are, to refine really what it is that they want, and then the gap in between. When I first started, it was very much a kind of a process of intervening with kind of exercises and practical steps.
Addiction is defined as chronic relapsing brain disorder characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite adverse consequences. So the person is aware of the adverse consequences but still engages in this harmful, risky behaviors like behavioral and substance addictions.
You and I are being farmed because it's about influence, but it's about money, and it's about how do they rather keep you on for longer, and that's their ethics, which is more people for longer so they can sell it to advertisers so they can make more money. The trouble with self-learning people, or self-directed learning, is that people only learn what they want. And so people look at social media, they see something that seems correct, and they follow that line, that kind of rabbit hole, if you like. And there's no balance to it. And that's the problem. We need variety. But social media is constructed to keep you attached. And so you only get what you want to read, and that's a real problem.
Yes, I definitely agree that placebo effects can be produced because of the reason I explained earlier, that if we keep looking for symptoms, we do find symptoms.
I think the person, the sort of lay person, if you like, the non-professional, doesn't always understand what the psychiatrist or the doctor is talking about, and they interpret things differently. So a young person can come away with a diagnosis that can be completely wrong. Sometimes things just happen. Growing up in any world is difficult. Making sense of yourself, making sense of changing things, doesn't necessarily have to have a diagnosis. If it helps, that's fine. People bandy around the word emotions all the time, and in my view, not really understanding what they mean. Often I think what they're talking about are sensations. Fluttering in the heart, stomach not feeling right. But what in a sense is most or more important is the meaning that people attach to that. And emotions are about meaning. Because they're lost. Because they want some names, some labels, some reason for being the way they are. Sometimes I say to my clients, it's about trauma, it's about bereavement, it's about things not being what you want. And sometimes that's just life. But if you want to have a shape to your life and a reason, is it because I'm a bad person or because something else is doing something to me? So a diagnosis gives you that security, or can apparently give you that security. That dreadful phrase, living one's best life, always on, always trying to, if not impress people, then at least keep them happy. And so to sit in front of someone like me and say, Martin, I feel crap, can be very difficult. And doing it online can be so much easier.
So Digital amnesia is over-reliance on media, on general media, to remember things for us.
We can put more information into media that will survive longer, but every so often a hard drive will fail, a book will go missing, a memory will disappear.
It doesn't take an effort, and you don't go through this learning stages when you memorize things, because it does take an effort. It should take an effort to learn something, and it is that effort that the load you place on your cognition. So that cognitive effort makes it stay with you, I think.
Well, the effects ultimately can be very damaging, very limiting. People can create a story for themselves about these distortions that lead them to be nowhere where they could be. They've never reached their potential. Well, clients sometimes come to me and they say they want to be happy. And I say, what about content? You know, happiness comes in peaks. But if you don't believe you deserve to be happy, or you can never be happy, that distortion can lead you to living a miserable life.
When we read and we rely so heavily on social media, for example, we look at ourselves more closely and compare ourselves with what we see.
I definitely don't navigate that very well, and I don't think it's necessarily like appearance-wise, but definitely like account-wise. A lot of accounts that are maybe similar to me, or even my friends on TikTok, I find myself, like, if my video's doing bad, I'm looking to see what everyone else's accounts are like and what everyone else's videos are doing at the moment, and I compare myself and I'm like, oh gosh, they have less followers than me, but their videos are doing better, and it really affects me because I think I'm just scared of being, I guess, judged.
And there are many ways to intervene to help people, in some respects, stand outside of themselves, to look back at their history, to look at where they are now, and to look into the future. And I'll say to somebody about a sensation or a voice, is that you? And they'll say, well, no, I hate it. And I go, well, actually, probably is you. In fact, I think it was Freud who said that distortions happen because memories are not updated. And so helping people back into a flow, out of the stuckness. By reflecting back what's natural, by reflecting back what's normal. Normalizing is one of the things that we do a lot of. People come and say, oh, I have this and I have that, and I'm sure it's not right. Actually, that's pretty normal. It's what most people do most of the time. If they've got a distorted self-image, then I might ask, so when did that not happen? When were you happy with yourself? What is it that caused this change? I guess I perhaps wouldn't call it a distortion, but call it a change, and then look at the story. Listen to the client.
I think maybe it was just when it was the rise of like beauty on TikTok almost, like when people would get followers just for being pretty. I think it was at that point that something switched in me, and it's not even like an insecurity, but it's like I want to match these people on social media, match these girls on social media. And now I find myself like redoing a TikTok take 20 times because I don't like that angle, or don't like the way my head moves in it. And it sucks because I used to just do one take and done and post, and now it takes me so long to film just the same thing because I just didn't like how I looked in it. And I don't know why that is, and I hate it. I really hate it, and I wish I could go back to just not caring, and I don't even know why I care, but I just do, and it's weird.
Going back and finding out where the distortion began, where the change happened, and offering different ways of viewing themselves, different ways of interpreting what they're feeling, different ways of understanding how they change over time. The things that you think about now are not the things you thought about 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You have different interpretations, and they need to be updated.
I guess because I post relatable content, I have started to to just be a bit more comfortable in myself?
The simple answer is create a space, a non-judgmental, welcoming, even loving space that simply says, what's happened to you? Tell me your story. And sometimes that story itself is distorted. Sometimes that story the person's telling them isn't theirs. It's something that somebody else has told them, or something an influencer has told them. And so it's about unpicking that. So when a client might say one thing to me, and 10 minutes later they're saying the complete opposite. So I'll have to say, how do those two fit together? Where do they come from? Two parts of yourself at war with each other. So we need to find out what they're both trying to achieve. So yeah, getting people to reflect from a different perspective so they can understand how they've come to where they are, and maybe even a bit of forgiveness, and dare I say, a great deal of love.